This story concerns one of the most sinister mass murderers who has ever threatened the peace of London. It's the summer of 1900, and the city has been rocked by a series of ghastly murders. On Hampstead Heath, that's a large rambling park in the suburbs of London, and noted as a rendezvous for young lovers. It was here that the elusive murderer, knife in hand, was wont to roam at night time, searching for his prey. All of his victims were young girls, and despite the frantic efforts of the police, each murder seemed to be as baffling as the one that preceded it. Finally, of course, as usual, Scotland Yard came to Sherlock Holmes for help. It seems almost like yesterday that Inspector Lestrade stood in our Baker Street room, informing Holmes to handle the case.
Mr. Holmes, you've got to help us. I don't mind telling you the yard is at the end of its rope.
I sympathize with you, Lestrade, but I don't see that there's much that I can do. Only the police can handle the widespread detailed work necessary to this case. The private detective is helpless.
Yes, perhaps if you had come to Holmes in the first place, Lestrade, he might have helped you.
But the murderer hasn't finished yet. There'll be more killings if we don't catch him. You mark my words, Mr. Holmes. Please help us, won't you?
Before I commit myself, Lestrade, give me the exact chronology of events, will you? All my information on the murders has been derived from the London newspapers, notoriously inaccurate matters of fact.
I'll give you all the particulars, sir. I've been on the case right from the beginning. All the murders have taken place on Hampstead Heath at night time, and all the victims have been young women.
Who was the first one?
A girl by the name of Oakley. Bessie Oakley. She was a shop girl who worked at Derry and Tom's in Kensington High Street. 3 weeks ago, she was out on the east with a young fellow by the name of Alfred Smith. From what he told me, it was a moonlit night. Come on, Bessie. Give us a kiss. Oh, Alfred, your kisses are sloppy. Come on, Bessie. Come on, Bess. Hello? Who's coming toward us? A blooming prowler. Hey, you. What do you want? Well, you can't say anything. Look out, Bessie. He's got a knife. No, don't. Oh, you devil. You hit my friend. Keep away from me. Keep away from me, you. And that's all I know, Inspector. I never got a look at him. He caught me on the end, and when I come to, there was full Bessie with a cut throat. That's your story, young fella. All right, Sergeant, you can book him on suspicion of murder.
Sir George, we shouldn't be walking on the heath. Didn't you read about the murder here 2 days ago?
It's a fine thing. I take you out in the moonlight and you talk of murders. Let's talk about us, Violet, darling.
It seems to me we should talk about your wife.
My wife doesn't mean anything to me anymore. Violet, if I could get a divorce,
There's someone behind that tree. He's coming towards us.
Who are you, sir? And what are you... No, you don't.
Don't come near me. Don't.
Inspector Lestrade, she's dead, poor girl, I know. But a scandal can't bring her back. If there's any way to keep my name out of the papers...
Yeah, I'm afraid you'll have to take your chances, Sir George. Oh, Sergeant! You can turn this boy loose. We've held for questioning. The man who did this is obviously the same killer. I'm afraid we're going to hear a lot more from him.
Live edition, evening paper. Hampstead Heath murder strikes the 5th time. 9 girls murdered on Hampstead Heath. Live edition, evening paper here.
Ah, look here, miss. You can't go walking by yourself on the heath. It ain't safe. Thank you, Constable, but I'm not frightened. I want to be by myself. I want to think. Well, I can't stop by law, I suppose, but you shouldn't do it. I don't know how to handle these modern young things, and that's a fact. Inspector Lestrade, he must have killed her the moment he got out of my sight. I searched the old ruddy heath, but I couldn't find the murderer. I did startle him. He left his knife in the body.
Good, Jackson. The body's not been identified yet, eh?
No, Inspector.
We'll print a photograph in all the papers. We've got to find out who she is. Mr. Bishop, is this the body of your missing daughter?
Yes, it's Rosie, my Rose. Inspector Lestrade, if I ever lay my hands on that murdering fiend, I'll kill him! I'll kill him with my bare hand!
And that's the story, Mr. Holmes. Rose Bishop was the 10th and the last girl murdered.
The first girl was murdered when she wasn't alone, Lestrade?
Yes, sir.
You found no clues?
Well, none that proved anything when we checked them.
Let me ask you a question or two, Lestrade.
Well, anything you like, sir.
You've taken the obvious precautions, of course.
How do you mean?
You posted a heavy police guard on the heath.
Oh, yes, sir. We've had 100 plainclothesmen walking there at night ever since the second murder, but he seems to slip through our fingers.
I suppose you've also posted policemen dressed in women's clothes.
Yes, Stones, and had girls walking the heath in couples with our plainclothesmen. But the murderer won't seem to rise to our bait.
Ah, he's a cunning brute.
Now, see us, Watson. Obviously a morbid madman obsessed by hatred of love. He'll be hard to catch. Lestrade, you mentioned clues that amounted to nothing when you checked them. What were these clues?
Well, footprints, a couple of cigarette butts dropped at the scene of the crime. Nothing that helped us. The only important clue was the knife we found in the body of Rose Bishop, the last girl murdered.
Of course, the experts are beyond examining it.
Yes, sir. Didn't tell us a thing, though.
You have the knife with you?
Here it is, Mr. Holmes. I knew you wouldn't trust us. You'd take a look at it yourself.
Thank you, Lestrade. Yes. Interesting.
What is it, Holmes?
And this knife is a collector's item. It's at least 100 years old, I should say. May I keep this overnight, Lestrade? I should like to conduct a few experiments of my own.
Well, of course you can, sir.
Then you're going to take on the case, Holmes?
I'd rather say I'll take it under advisement. I'll do my best, Lestrade. I'll do my best.
Thank you, sir.
If any further developments occur, communicate with me at once, will you?
Yes, sir.
In the meanwhile, I'll smoke a few pipes on the problem. But I promise nothing, my dear fellow. I promise absolutely nothing.
It's 3 o'clock in the morning, Holmes. You're still peering through your microscope at that knife Lestrade left with you.
That's quite true, old chap. It's quite true. Must be a very dull companion. Why don't you go to bed?
Ugh, 'cause I'm afraid I may miss something. Confound it. Have you discovered any?
Yes, I think so.
Oh, what?
I handled that this knife is corrugated. On the underside, I observed a slight diffusion in the markings. Under the penetrating eye of the microscope, I found minute deposits, which have caused the diffusion. I have just analyzed that deposit. It's wax. Colored wax.
Colored wax? Well, what does that signify?
Oh, by itself, very little. But when you combine it with a knife that definitely belongs to another century, it does suggest a certain origin.
I've got an idea. Perhaps it came from the theater. An 18th century dagger could belong in a period play, and the colored wax might easily be part of an actor's makeup.
An excellent deduction, Watson.
Thanks, Holmes.
However, my own theory would be that this dagger came from a waxworks exhibition.
Oh, wrong again.
Putty is used in theatrical disguises, but I don't recall the use of colored wax.
Whereas it is used in making wax figures. And of course, the dagger would belong as part of the costume.
Precisely, my dear fellow. It's a long chance, but I think in the morning we'll make a tour of the various London waxworks exhibitions. If my deduction is a false one, at least we'll have the pleasure of a busman's holiday, where we can visit all our old friends who died on the gallows. Any tired, old chap?
I must say I'm a little wary. This is the 4th waxwork exhibition that we've been to.
The 4th and the last. If we fail to find any clues here at Levesque's Museum, we can return to Baker Street.
Oh, thank heavens this is our last protocol. I'm so dizzy from looking at waxworks that they begin to look like human beings to me. Did you notice that I asked directions from the wax policeman at the entrance door just now?
Yes. I'm sure many people have been deceived in the same way. Ah, here we are.
Hall of murder. Levesque doesn't believe an understatement, does he? Look at that sign there.
Oh, goodness gracious me. The Chamber of Horrors. Come in and see the pageant of murder. All the great killers of history reenacting their famous crimes. Well, let's go in, Watson. We should feel thoroughly at home.
Creepy in here, isn't it? I've heard that Monsieur Levesque will pay £100 to anyone who'll spend all night alone in the Chamber of Horrors.
Yes, I've heard that too. Are you thinking of accepting the bet?
Great Scott, no. I wouldn't spend the night here for 1,000.
Very comprehensive collection of killers, aren't they? Let's see. Williams, Wainwright, the Machinist de Plomfillier.
By Jove, yes. She was an attractive woman, wasn't she? The stripest pair of ankles eyes have ever seen.
Yes, but you wouldn't have liked her cooking, Watson. She used the most lethal condiments, more than any woman in history. Hello.
What is it?
Look over there.
I was wondering when it'd come to one of your cases. Dr. Grimsby Rylot and murder at Shook Marion. Or the case of the speckled band. By Jove, Holmes, the tableau extraordinary realistic, isn't it?
Yes, one of another old friends of mine are represented here. He rather liked you and your acquaintance was the Rigolette at the clubfoot, and his abominable wife.
Rigolette? I don't remember him, Holmes.
Oh, one of my earlier cases, old fellow. I must tell you that story sometime.
Yes, I wish you would. I'm off. Holmes, look, that veiled figure over there. Read the placard in front of it.
The Hampstead Heath murderer. Well, very interesting.
Its face is covered with a black veil.
If this is pure showmanship, I wonder what Monsieur Levesque knows. No more than Scotland Yard and I.
Mr. Sherlock Holmes.
This is my name. And now this is my friend Dr. Watson.
How do you do?
How do you do, Doctor? I'm greatly honored to meet your booth. What do you think of my Chamber of Horrors?
Very impressive. We're particularly interested in this veiled figure of the Hampstead Heath murderer.
Yes, indeed we are, sir. Is there a face beneath the veil?
I'd let you in on a trade secret, gentlemen. There are no recognizable features behind that veil. It is purely for publicity purposes. The public is always expects to see latest horrors there, and I thought I'd titillate their morbid palates by having a mysterious figure representing the killer. Of course, if he is captured, I should add his effigy to my collection.
You think he will be captured, then?
Only one can only speculate. He is a clever man, Mr. Holmes.
By the way, Mr. Levesque, does your offer of £100 to anyone who will spend a night in the Chamber of Horrors still stand?
Oh, yes. Are you thinking of accepting the bet, Mr. Holmes?
No, but Dr. Watson would like to.
What? Holmes, I
don't recommend the experience, Doctor. It is an ordeal that calls for nerve of steel. However, I shall be glad to arrange for.
But I haven't the slightest intention of...
Backing down now? Of course you haven't, old fellow. What time should my friend return, sir?
About 11:30 tonight. I'll be waiting for him at the main entrance.
Splendid. Come on, Watson.
But Holmes,
Good day, Mr. Levesque.
Good day, gentlemen. I shall be waiting for you tonight, Doctor.
Holmes, what the blazes do you think you're doing? I haven't the slightest intention of keeping that appointment tonight.
Well, of course you haven't. I shall keep it. Disguised as you.
You keep it? For heaven's sake, tell me what you're up to, Holmes. You didn't even mention the missing dagger to Levesque.
No, because you know something about the murderer. I'm convinced of it.
Well, why do you say that?
As we were standing there talking to him, a breath of air from the open window broke that corner of the veil. I'll swear that there are clearly defined features beneath it.
And so you're going back tonight to find out?
That's right, old fellow. The superstitious used to believe they could use a waxen image to kill a man. Tonight, Watson, we shall prove that a waxen image can be used to trap a killer.
After dinner that night, he began to apply the makeup. It's uncanny to sit there in Baker Street and watch Holmes slowly turning into a very convincing replica of myself. As he did so, we discussed the last-minute arrangement.
I'll be there by 11:30, Watson, and if I'm not back by 2 o'clock, you better come out for me.
Why can't I wait outside, old fellow, just in case there's any trouble?
No, you'd attract attention. By the way, do you recall the name of the last girl murdered on the Heath?
Yes, Bishop. Rose Bishop, wasn't it?
Exactly. The only girl who was murdered when she was unescorted. The body was identified by her father.
Well, what of it, Holmes?
Levesque is a French name, and yet the gentleman had a decidedly English accent under the fake French one. I should say that he adopted a foreign name and accent as being more suited to his profession.
I don't see what you're driving here. What's the connection between Levesque, the owner of the waxworks, and the father of Rose Bishop, the murdered girl?
Levesque is the French word for bishop.
Great Scott! You think that he knows who the murderer is?
I know one thing, Watson. I must see what is beneath that black veil. Now, how's my disguise?
Huh, wonderful. You look exactly like me, but how do you manage about the voice?
That's all, Mr. Beck, that's all.
I can't understand half of what you're saying.
In your own case, old chap, there's a handicap that you've suffered on for years.
Rubbish. I'm perfectly intelligible.
Now, let me see. Bullseye, London, yes. Watson, I think I'll bring your revolver too. I probably won't need it, but for once it might be safer for me to go armed.
Here you are, Holmes. Now do be careful.
I will, old chap. Don't worry. Goodbye, and if I'm not back by 2 o'clock, you'd better come to the waxworks and see what's happened to me.
Hey, Dr. Watson, you don't mind if I search you?
Oh, good gracious, no, Mr. Levesque. Of course not.
No lantern, please. The moonlight will give you all the illumination that you need. Oh, dear me. A revolver in your pocket. I'm afraid I can't allow that.
No.
Once before, a young man who unwisely accepted my bet left some bullet holes in some of my finest wax works. But he finally went raving mad.
Oh, good gracious me. Raving mad, did he? I wish Holmes were here.
Don't be frightened, Dr. Watson. Many of the waxworks murderers here are old friends of yours. They'll be good company. I shall come and release you at 8 in the morning.
No. Probably not at 8.
I've sealed all of the windows with string and wax. I shall seal the door behind me as I leave.
Oh, that's very unkind of you.
Midnight. The bet is on, Doctor. Do you still want to go through with it?
Oh, yes, I think so.
Very well, then. I shall leave you now. Good night, Dr. Watson.
Good night.
Pleasant dreams.
Pleasant dreams. Huh? What's that? Who's there? Could have sworn I heard something about the shells. I sure wish Holmes were here with me. What? The window? Great Scott, it's Watson! And now before his time. Well, I'll take off the seals and the string. Come on, up with it!
Holmes, you all right?
Shh. Yes, I'm all right. You came early. But it's just swear. You carried a lantern? Levesque took mine with him. Come on in. Shh.
Ah, there we are.
You look a little on guard. I'm glad to see you, Watson, but what made you decide to come here so early?
After you left, Lestrade came to Baker Street. He told me there was another murder on the heath at 7 o'clock tonight.
Another murder, eh?
I started worrying about you, Holmes. I had a premonition of impending danger, and I decided to come over here. You're not angry with me?
Of course not, my dear fellow. Glad to have the company, and appreciate your concern.
Have you looked under the veil of the wax figure on the Hampstead Heath murder yet?
No, in fact, I was just about to. Your lantern will be most useful. Come on, Watson.
So, what have you been doing? Just doing nothing?
Yes, sire. I wanted to give Levesque an impression that I was here for the night, and also to do some serious thinking. Smoke 2 pipes on the problem, Watson. I think I have the answer now. I'm willing to swear you will know the face you see when I lift the veil from the waxen dummy.
Here's the figure.
Now, hold your lantern a little high, will you, chap? That's it. I lift the veil and let me see.
Good Lord. It's a waxwork figure of Levesque himself.
Precisely, Watson. An entire example of the one-self-betrayal inherent of criminal egotism. Levesque couldn't resist
Holmes, the waxwork is moving. Great Scott, it's alive.
Which is more than either of you will be in a few minutes.
You re-entered this room by secret door, I suppose?
Yes, Mr. Holmes. And since you displayed such a flattering interest in the Hampstead Heath murder, I decided to remove the wax figure and appear in person.
Look out, Holmes. He's got a revolver.
Oh, no, Doctor. This isn't a revolver in my pocket. What would the Hampstead Heath murder want a revolver? This is a knife. I feel so much more at home with a knife.
There are 2 of us, Levesque. Remember that.
And both unarmed. Which one of you meddlers wants to die first?
Look out, Holmes.
Watch it, Watson.
The lantern's out.
Yes, and the moon's fading. What a pity.
Holmes, where are you?
Over here, by the effigy of Macbeth. How very thoughtful of you to provide him with a dagger, Levesque.
Why wouldn't one, my dear Holmes? You cannot escape me. I can feel my way in the dark here. I know every inch of this room. You're doomed, both of you!
Don't strike a match, Holmes. You'll make a target of yourself.
The devil to that. I'm lighting this newspaper to make an excellent torch to set light to the nearest waxwork.
No, don't burn my waxwork!
Wax on a wooden frame, it'll blaze brilliantly. There we are.
Oh, you devil! You destroyed my life's work!
Holmes, that burning wax is pouring all over the floor. The curtains are catching light. The whole place will burn down.
Oh, my beautiful museum!
I thought this would smoke you up. Quick, Watson, light it again.
Watch that knife, Holmes.
Well, Mr. Holmes, you've done it again. You sold a case in a blaze of glory. You get my point, sir. A blaze of glory.
Yes, Lestrade, I get the point. Thank you very much. Pass the marmalade, will you, Watson?
Here you are, Holmes. Is that the morning paper you brought with you, Lestrade?
Yes, Doctor. Want me to read you the headline?
Yes, please do.
Here we are. Hampstead Heath murderer captured in a fire that destroys waxworks exhibition. You know, Mr. Holmes, you and the doctor were lucky you weren't burned to death. Never mind the chance you're around having your throat cut by that maniac.
It was fortunate the police and firemen were on the scene as quickly as they were. Levesque had the strength of 10 men.
Yes, the strength of a madman. He'll never stand trial, of course.
No, Doctor, he'll end up in the asylum where he belongs. Mr. Holmes, what made you suspect Levesque?
You first gave me the clue yourself, Lestrade. You told me that all the murdered girls were accompanied by men when they were attacked, all except one, Rose Bishop. Therefore, if the murderer was venting a hatred of love, he had to yet be someone very close to Bishop to know that she was a suitable victim. The point alone, which I was shockingly slow in observing, would have told us to focus on the father, Mr. Bishop, alias Levesque.
Well, your theory is certainly right, Mr. Holmes. You should have heard his ravings after the arrest. He swore his daughter had been ruined. He also killed her to...
Holmes, the waxwork figure of the killer, the one with the veil over its face. The features underneath were those of Levesque himself, weren't they?
I'm such a never-told fellow. You see, he had two great prides. The first, his natural pride as a fine craftsman in wax. The second, his perverted pride as a prominent and successful murderer. These two prides combined suggested to his crazed mind that he make a waxwork figure of himself and arrange it with the other great killers of history.
But he was cunning enough to protect himself by placing a veil over the face.
Precisely, my dear fellow, and when he saw us yesterday and we accepted the wager, he undoubtedly became suspicious and removed the wax figure last night and made his personal appearance as the murderer, with every intention of killing us both. Yes, we were very lucky, old chap.
If you ask me, Mr. Holmes, you've been very smart.
I quite agree, Lestrade. I think you've solved the case brilliantly, Holmes.
No, I've been very sluggish. I solved my circumstance and melodrama, which should have been a purely intellectual problem. I'm not pleased with myself. Lestrade, I hope that my name has not been used in that newspaper report.
Oh, no, sir, it doesn't.
Excellent. I want no credit in this case.
Do you mean to say that you're going to let Scotland Yard get the praise for catching him, Holmes?
Why not?
Well, it's very generous, Mr. Holmes. It'll make a lot of things easier for me.
Yes, it certainly will. Holmes, I can see why you reproach yourself.
Yes, my dear Watson, like the Hampstead Heath murderer, I too have my pride as a craftsman. This case had a clearly defined pattern, and I was unable to recognize it. If you should have an occasion to chronicle this story, and Watson, I should prefer you don't, I would like you to title it The Education of an Idiot.
Come on now, Holmes. The education of an idiot? That's absurd.
I know, but if you do tell this story, it'll probably end up as, The Strange Case of the Murderer in Wax.